Hey YouTube, what's going on? This is Joachim, back again for this year's graphic novel collection update. And it has been not quite a year since the last upload, but that upload was a bit late. Actually, I did record it around March last year, so it all comes together. We're approximately 1 year later, and we're gonna take a look at the collection. And before we start going through the shelves and everything, I wanted to add up the numbers first. So at the time, I have 347 books, and out of those books, 11 of them I have not yet to read. But though some of those 11 books actually have material that I've already read in either a different format, or some of them are just upgrades because I had some binding issues with some older books. But I'm not gonna try to go around that, and just as I try to encourage people to actually read their books that they're buying into their collection. 11 books out of 347, that is approximately 3.17% of the collection that is unread, and I'm really happy with that number actually. And I'm just gonna keep on going, and I'm so happy that I can keep that low number, as it gives me time to actually go back into the collection and reread my books. And when it comes to rereading my books, it has actually taken me 3 years to reread all of the collection behind me, as I started off with this sort of minimalism journey. And so I took off DC, Marvel, and indie comics year after year, and I would say that it's worked out fine. Sold some stuff, kept some stuff. We're gonna see what I kept right now. So thank you for clicking on this video. Okay, let's try to do this. Trying to film this on the highest shelf while still having great sound and not have my head in front of the camera whilst doing so. Great. Okay, so here are the top left most shelf, and the first book I can't even pull out to show you. But the book that stands here on its side is Private Eye by Brian K. Vaughan. It's a great artwork, and artist Marcos Martin. I would think that, okay, let's do this, let's see. Yes, Marcos Martin. So here we have Private Eye, and great start for this year's update graphic novel collection. Next to it, of course, you can see it here, The Deadly Class. And next to that, we have Dual Art, Kazuka Takahashi, Forever, Rest in Peace, and Thank You for a Great Childhood. Very sad, he truly died a hero, saving a person from drowning. Next up, we have our DC Absolutes. We start off with Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. Of course, my all-time favorite Batman story. And yeah, so glad to still have the Absolute within the collection, happily so. Then we have Batman Absolute by Jeff Loeb and McGinnis, and of course Michael Turner once again left us too early. And then we have All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. And then we have our newly edition Doomsday Clock by Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Brad Anderson, that I have not taken out of shrink wrap as of this video yet, but of course I'm very much looking forward to reread it for the first time. Then we have Icons, also by Jim Lee. It's not a rarity, I think they reprinted this in the Graphic Ink collection, but of course I've been a huge Jim Lee fan in the early days of collecting, and that's where this crown jewel actually comes in, the Jim Lee Millennium Edition by Wizard Comics. So it's a publication of different Jim Lee interior artwork and covers and whatnot, and some articles as well. Then we have Swedish comic books, and I'm not very high into Swedish comic books, but I have some original artwork, or original comics by Kim W. Anderson. Love Hurts, deluxe edition. A bunch of mini comics with love in the main conception of all the stories, but all in different genres. Elena, a sort of horror thriller drama. And then Herman Hedning, of course. We have some paperbacks editions, the hardcover editions that covers all his works from 1988 up till 2012 as of this volume here, Ragnarok or Ragnarök. And Beer Brewing and Bastards, just because I'm a fan of his work here. I don't even drink, bought it anyways. And then Elvis, 20 Kronström's best work ever. And sadly, so they stopped making the title after the creators got a divorce. All good things must come to an end, I guess. Let's keep on to the next shelf. And in this middle compartment, we keep on going with some more Elvis paperbacks. And then we go into the manga section. And as you can see here, it's filled with just the Attack on Titan Colossal Editions, volumes 1 to 6. And as I previously mentioned, it is probably one of my most favorite manga series out there. And yeah, so nothing much to show you here actually. Hope they do a hardcover collection one day, otherwise I love these to death and I'll keep them and reread them until they fall apart. Next shelf. And here we have more manga. And basically just the one, but we have our final volume of Attack on Titan, volume 7 here on our furthest left. And then we have volumes 1 to 13 of the Kentaro Miura Berserk series. And actually, as of today, while filming this video, volume 13 just arrived. So I have been reading straight through of this series. Each and every time I got a new volume in, it is the first thing that I've dived into. And as I do not praise it just as high as Attack on Titan, I do see what other people see in this series, and I understand. And to also see the creators' artwork develop is of course amazing throughout this series. So of course, rest in peace, Kentaro Miura. Now let's get on to the next shelf. And here we have more manga books, of course. We have Death Note, the all-in-one edition, a Bible of sorts of a book with 12 manga volumes packed into one soft cover here. I've read it twice now actually, and definitely gonna keep it. And then we have the Full Metal Alchemist volumes 1 to 18, the Full Metal edition, and each one has featured a character with spread out artwork right across the hardcover itself. Really nice. Each one collects like 1.5 of the original paperback volumes, and I've read it straight through once and gonna reread it one more time before I decide what I'll do with this collection. And then we have, of course, once again, Tezuka Takahashi's Yu-Gi-Oh! The 3-in-1 edition, and these are the first 7 volumes, and then on the next shelf we have more volumes of that. And here, as I said, we have 6 more volumes of Yu-Gi-Oh! The 3-in-1 edition. Of course, the last volume is 2-in-1, but still. And then we start off with the IDW books and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles volumes 1 to 6 on this row. Very nice editions. Probably gonna keep those for a long time. And here, as you can see, we keep on going with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ongoing series up till volume 14. And there is a volume 15 solicited, so we're just waiting for that to be added to the collection. And then, as a nice round out for the series itself, we also have The Last Ronin. Great miniseries, got some Dark Knight Returns feel to it. And then IDW Transformers Phase 1 and Phase 2, almost complete. Volume 12 is on the next shelf row. But yeah, I've been enjoying Transformers very much in these hardcover collections, and very glad to have them in my collection as well. And I, for one, unpopular opinion, but I actually enjoy Phase 1 more than other people, I guess, because people always say start off with Phase 2. This is fine if you have an open mind. Like, I don't know. I like the Bayformers movies also, so maybe that's why. But yeah, let's move on. Okay, so let's try out this angle for these coming shelves, because I know you want to see them straightforward on how everything is organized, but it's kind of tight here, standing between the bed and the bookshelves. But this is, believe me, the best solution for what we have. Like this, you can at least see some covers when I draw out the books. So, we have the final volume of Phase 2, that's volume 12 here with Soundwave, and then starting off with the IDW Phase 3 of Transformers series. Wingblade there on the cover, and the final volume here as of now with Cup. And I really, really hope that whoever owns the Transformers IP now will continue this series in some form, because it's so close to being finished, is what I believe, and I want to have it all collected in this format. So yeah. And then our last IDW book for this time, the Lock and Key Keyhouse Compendium, that collects the whole series. And I just love Lock and Key. Netflix show doesn't even compare, not even close. And then we have the Big Hard Sex Criminals, volumes 1, 2, and 3, so that's the whole series there. I actually like how bright and colorful their hardcovers are. And then next to them we have Chew, the Omnivore edition, basically deluxe-sized hardcovers, volumes 1, 2, and 6. And then we have Revival by Tim Seeley, Mike Norton, volumes 1 to 4. And then, of course, the magnum opus of Brian K. Vaughan, which is Saga, volumes 1, 2, and 3, in the deluxe-sized editions. And then we have Greg Rucka's magnum opus, which would be Lazarus, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, let's keep on going. Okay, we are standing so close to the shelf now with the camera, so it's ridiculous. But we'll carry on through. We have more image titles here with East of West by Jonathan Hickman and John Dragotta. And then we have The Wicked plus the Divine. Nothing much to actually show you on cover-wise, just these emblems resembling each of the gods that shows up in pop culture format within the series. And I have my back and forths about this series, whether I'll keep it or not, but I think one more reread should do it. And then we have Bill Willingham's Fables deluxe hardcover editions, volumes 1 to 6 on this shelf. And of course, nice spread around artwork on the covers. And yeah, I really like the story. I like the concept of Fables very much. Then how it ended up could have been stronger, but it's still the journey that counts, I think. And next, as you can see, we keep on with the rest of the volumes of Fables up to volume 15. And then we have Jason Aaron's magnum opus. We're all about the magnum opus series here for all the different writers and creators. And Scout is definitely one that, oh my god, each and every time that I read the series, and that is twice now that I've read it, each and every time that I read the series now, I finish it off in 2 or 3 days. It is just that good, and yeah, it just keeps on going. It would make a tremendous TV show one day. And then we have something that already is a TV show, but I think this is much better. That is Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire. And as I reckon, this is also signed and sketched by Jeff Lemire. One of the few creators that actually has taken his time to cross the Atlantic and come here to Sweden and visit us. And then we have Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. This will bring you to tears, even though you might not be the kind of guy who cries for reading comics. But even so, I am, so this was no exception. And then we have some Alan Moore books, or the Alan Moore book, V for Vendetta, the deluxe edition. Really much like this. Okay, good English. I very much like this. And the movie as well, actually. I don't think that the adaptation is too bad. Then we have a exception when it comes to my paperbacks in my collection, because I rarely have paperbacks unless it's manga. But this one, We Free by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. It's just 3 issues of a miniseries about 3 pets just wanting to get home. It's always with animals, man. That always gets you. Moving on. Boom Studios, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers collection. The Kyle Higgins volumes 1, 2, and 3. Great. Whatever happened here with Margaret Bennett on volume 4. Don't know. And with Necessary Evil Part 1 and 2 by Ryan Parrott, I am very much intrigued to reading that final volume. And of course, the covers on each and every one of these volumes is stunning. And almost half of them, each of these editions, are all covers. So almost half of the book issues are one variants on variants on variants of covers that they published with this. And then last but not least, for this row, we have Terry Moore's Rachel Rising Omnibus. Great drama series, and a bit of a... Of course, this is very Halloweeny, something to read for those moms. So yeah, next shelf. And we're finally starting off with superhero stuff. Starting off with Marvel. And starting off on the Marvel shelf, you can see that it is still having space to grow, which is something that I love with this collection, that I actually still have space to grow. And yeah, it is currently occupied by Optimus Prime, as you can see there to your left, and some Ultimate Spider-Man volumes 7 up to 12 in the deluxe sized hardcover editions, which will be out of the collection hopefully soon, as they announce more Ultimate Spider-Man Omnibus. So volume 7, 8, and 9 will of course be collected within volume 3, which I have been pre-ordering, but I don't want to sell them off before I have the new volume, in case I want to reread this series soon. And the same goes for volumes 10, 11, and 12, of course. Next side will have a bit more material than this. And as I said, a bit more titles on this side. And we have the OGN, the original graphic novels of Marvel. Start off with Avengers Rage of Ultron by Rick Remender. One of the few exceptions from Deadly Class that I have with Rick Remenders. I used to have loads of Rick Remender titles, but the ones that stuck was really Rage of Ultron, because I like whenever they take up AI as humans, or always when a series takes up the discussion of consciousness, basically. That is why I love Westworld. And then we have Amazing Spider-Man family business. This would make a great movie. This is written by Mark Waid and drawn by Gabriel Delora. And then we have Daredevil, End of Days by Brian Michael Bendis. This, much like The Last Ronin, is for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. This is for Daredevil, the final book that I read whenever I read a Daredevil marathon. And then we have some Iron Man stuff. Iron Man, I don't have a lot of stuff in, mostly when I read him. He's in the Avengers books. But here we have the Iron Man Extremis with the movie cover here, as you can see, by Warren Ellis and Adi Granov. And then we have Matt Fraction's The Invincible Iron Man, which hopefully one day can be voted into getting a proper omnibus collection. Probably then these two volumes here would be collected as one. And I think there's at least, if they would keep up with this format, we at least would have had 2 more volumes. But yeah, one can only hope. And next up we have Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman. This is of course something that goes into a Avengers readathon, or whenever you have a Jonathan Hickman readathon, and ending up the series of that. Then next to it we have The Vision by Tom King. One, as I said once again, whenever they take up and bring up AI and consciousness of what is life basically, or a living being, I love the series. And of course they have other twists as well within the series. And yeah, just Vision making his own family, trying to fit in within our world. Then we have Al Ewing's The Immortal Hulk. Recently finished reading this series this week actually, as of filming this, and really love it. Also a psychological touch within this series, as they bring up all the different personas that has emerged within Bruce Banner through the years. And then finally go into some Spider-Man stuff. And here we have Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man, this volume 3, I would say, of the series. Each and every time we start off at volume, or at number 1, that would be counted as a new volume of the series. But yeah, really like this. This is after the Superior Spider-Man. Of course, I used to have the Superior Spider-Man deluxe hardcovers, and I sold them off just because we are finally getting the Superior Spider-Man omnibus. And then we have the Amazing Spider-Man Worldwide series, volumes 1, 2, and 3, and that pretty much concludes, after that, Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man series. But just because it was Dan Slott's conclusion doesn't mean that I have more books to show you. And here we have also some series that are implemented within the Dan Slott series, like the Clone Conspiracy and the Red Goblin story arc. Of course, there's some glare there, but yeah, you can see it, almost. And then starts the omnibus, as you can see. We have J. Michael Straczynski, volumes 1 and 2, square binding on volume 2. Doesn't bother me, but I thought I'd tell you. And then we have Nick Spencer, Amazing Spider-Man run that started off after Dan Slott left the title, and artwork by Ryan Otley, of course, the same as the artist for Invincible with Robert Kirkman. And I should mention, I do have the Invincible books. They're just not shown in this collection video because I'm selling them off to buy the hardcover compendiums. So now you know. Moving on, we have the Spider-Verse Spider-Geddon omnibus, still in the shrink wrap, haven't read it yet. I have read the Spider-Verse event, of course, many times, but not the Spider-Geddon. So looking forward to actually read that in its completion and in a proper reading order the most. Then we have the Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is the first edition collection when it was just, that title. Instead of just having it be named Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales Volumes 2 I guess this would be. But yeah, I kept it just because to sell it off and just to buy it again, just to have another name and cover on it, seems a bit too much for me on that, at least. And then we have Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, volumes 1 and 2, first printings, and Daredevil by Mark Waid, volumes 1 and 2, first printing. Daredevil by Charles Soule, and moving on here, just title for title, Immortal Iron Fist and Immortal Weapons. Haven't dug into that yet, but right now, as of filming this video, I am reading the Young Avengers by Heinberg and Chung, and this is just the dust jacket here actually holding its place. And then we have the New Avengers Volume 1, hoping that a reprint of a series of a Volume 1 will spur them on to having a Volume 2, and a Volume 3 I think would be enough to collect all of the series and all the tie-ins and such. And last but not least, for this shelf we have Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan. It's getting a bit cramped here, as you can see, not only with books but also me standing here in between the camera and the doors and everything. I might not be able to pull out as many books, but I'll try my best. First off, we have some books that I don't think that I've actually shown you, because I had a sabbatical year away from YouTube, like one does. And here we have the Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, volumes 1 and 2. Fantastic, might I say. Fantastic read, and really much like it. I'll keep this forever because it was amazing. And then we have 4 by Jason Aaron, volume 1. Having one more volume of that, we'll finish off the series, and highly awaiting that. And then after that, we start off with the Black Spine of Marvel Omnibus, with the exception of Daredevil here. We have Alias by Bendis once again, the New X-Men by Grant Morrison, and the Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon. The X-Men series, both of these I think are good in and out books, so you can both start and finish off with each of these books and get something out of them, because I do not want to dive into yet another rabbit hole of just loads and loads of collected editions. Pretty much the two that I'm deep in is the Daredevil and Spider-Man, but those I think held up in quality. Not that X-Men doesn't hold up in quality, but these are the ones that I know for safe are good in and out stories. Then we keep on with Ed Brubaker's Captain America run. I think these are all first printings. I'm actually very happy for that, but I do like what they've done with the new covers for the new printings. But yeah, Captain America by Ed Brubaker, really love it. And of course here we have nice Alex Ross cover artwork. And then we have Daredevil starting off with the Frank Miller collection, and then the Companion, of course, and Marvel Knights by Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith. And then my most favorite of them all is definitely Daredevil, The Man Without Fear by Bendis and Malieve. So we have those two volumes, and then follow up by Ed Brubaker and Lark. And then finishing off this shelf with Daredevil Shadowland Omnibus. Okay, so next up we have some Star Wars stuff. The Darth Vader title is the only title as of right now that I've chosen to pick up from Star Wars, because a lot of the writers like Charles Soule and Kieran Gillen has done amazing runs on the series, and if they'll make another one with the current series, I'll probably pick that up too. So yeah, I have basically this came out second, but I'll try to keep them in chronological order for the Star Wars episodes. And here we have the one by Gillen. So each and every time I bought the deluxe editions, but then sold them off to have the omnibus, because that is as you can probably see, their preferred format. Then we have Planet Hulk, probably the best Hulk story out there. And let me tell you, Immortal Hulk was a good competitor, but I think I still probably prefer Planet Hulk. And then we have the Ultimates by Mark Millar and Brian Hitch. This is probably Brian Hitch's best work, and yeah, I like what it is. It's like going to the movies and everything. Nice widespread panels, and yeah. Moving on with the Ultimate Universe, we have Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis and Bagley, of course. Volumes 1 and 2, so collecting the first 6 volumes of the deluxe editions. And both of these are still in shrink wrap, but I have read the series like 3 or 4 times. And yeah, cannot wait to reread it once again within this format. And then we have Ultimate Spider-Man. Come on, it's right there of Spider-Man. And then last but not least for this series, the Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man. So this would, with the renamed series, be Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales Volume 1. But yeah, I actually have upgraded this once because the first printing that we made of this had terrible binding and had to sell it off, and then I got this one again. So yeah, moving on with, of course, more Spider-Man books. As I told you, more Spider-Man books. And here we actually start off with the Silver Age stuff. So the Stan Lee Ditko books, John Romita, and I think that actually has the Humberto Ramos cover because that is what was available at the time. It's actually my very first Amazing Spider-Man omnibus that I picked up all those years ago, almost 10 years ago now. And then of course they have come out with volume 3, 4, and now 5. And then we have the Roger Stern Spider-Man omnibus, which is probably my second omnibus. So it's the first printing, and I think if they ever publish a volume 6, it'll probably touch upon the material that is collected within this one. But we'll see. And then we have the Amazing Spider-Man by Todd McFarlane with the red suit variant. I wanted the symbiote variant, but hey, take what you can get. It's just a cover. And then we have Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Eric Larson. Spider-Man vs. Venom, pretty much because I wanted to have Maximum Carnage collected within oversized format and not paperback. And then we finally have the soon-to-be reprinted Spider-Man Clone Saga Volumes 1 and 2, as well as the Ben Reilly Saga Volumes 1 and 2. And yeah, for what it is, the Clone Saga is definitely too long of the series. But for what it is, I mean, they sort of wrapped it up in the end with that one issue. But you know what they tried to do, or maybe they didn't even know what they tried to do with that. But yeah, for what it is, 90s chaos and everything, there they are in the collection. Now let's get on with the DC books. Okay, so now we start off with the DC shelf, and as you can see, we still have some space actually to grow on this shelf. Right now that space is occupied by the Batarang and the Jim Lee Blue Line action figure here. Why do I keep this? I don't know. But yeah, there they are. And there they'll stay until I need the space for more books, I guess. And then we have the Batman The Dark Knight Returns Collector's Edition. In the end, I had so many editions of The Dark Knight Returns, but this is the one that I chose to keep. And then we have the Batman Year 1 Deluxe Edition, The Killing Joke by Alan Moore, Batman Arkham Asylum by Grant Morrison. This is the 25th anniversary edition. Batman Two-Face Face the Face Deluxe Edition, a series that is taking place, I think, right before Grant Morrison's Batman series started. And then we have Rebirth, so Batman by Tom King, volumes 1 to 6, and in the middle of it we also have the Batman and the Flash, the Button. I think that's a good complement series for, I think you actually have to have it in order to enjoy the Batman by Tom King to its fullest, and I really did, and really hope that they one day will make these into 2 omnibus. That would be really nice. Then we have the Flintstones by Mark Russell, Deluxe Edition. The Jeff Lemire Green Arrow series and Andre Sorrentino. This one also signed by Jeff Lemire. And then we have Identity Crisis by Brad Meltzer and Rags Morales. And a series that I wish that they would keep on printing with these deluxe hardcovers, the Justice League of America by Brad Meltzer, and also Jeff Johns and Ed Bennis on artwork. I mean, this is probably the best, but the series got interrupted by a lot of events, so yeah. Then we have Kingdom Come by Alex Ross and Mark Quaid. And last but not least, we have Mr. Miracle, the Deluxe Edition by Tom King. Next shelf. Pretty much all Batman, as you can see, but with the exception of the deluxe size edition of Watchmen, something that I might upgrade into the Absolute in the future, because having reread Watchmen for the first time, so I've actually only read it 2 times within my 10 years of collecting, I really see it for the greatness that it is. And of course I enjoyed it the first time also, but the second time I really understood the impact and the greatness of the series itself with the dialogue and everything. And yeah, it is truly a worthy read if you're getting into collecting. And yeah, let's move on. We have Batman stuff, as you can see. The Batman and Robin, or the Batman, the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. This is a complement series for the first Batman by Grant Morrison omnibus, because it doesn't contain the complete story of the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, because some of the issues were also written by Paul Dini. And then we have Scott Snyder's best work when it comes to Batman, and that is the Black Mirror. This is one of my earliest Batman stories that I've read. Little did I know that it would also be one of the best. And in complement to that, we have the Batman The Dark Knight Master Race by Frank Miller, Brian Azzarello, artwork by Andy Kubert. It's a sequel of sorts to Dark Knight Returns. I would never read the Dark Knight Strikes Again. That is basically the sequel, and this would be the third one in a trilogy, but I'll never read Dark Knight Strikes Again ever again. This, I like the artwork, and the story I can give it a take. Then we have Batman Catwoman by Tom King and Claymon. And really love this cover. Let's see if we can get some focus on that. Yeah, really love this story, and for what it did for Tom King's series, finally wrapping it up as hopefully as he wanted it to. And yeah, if you ever check out Batman by Tom King, remember to finish off with reading this series. Yeah, next up we have Earth 1 books. We have Batman Earth 1 volumes 1, 2, and 3. And I read pretty much all of the Earth 1 series, but in the end, the one that actually stuck with me was the Batman series. And you can actually see a lot of things carried on over from the Earth 1 series over to the Matt Reeves movie. And then we have The Flash Rebirth by Jeff Johns. And yeah, I return to this pretty much every time I reread Final Crisis or Infinite Crisis, whenever this story fits in. And then we have Batman Bruce Wayne Murderer and Fugitive in paperback format. These are one of the few exceptions when it comes to collection, but these are like chunky books. I mean, so great material within them. Batman War Games, volumes 1 and 2. If you ever want to see Stephanie Brown as Robin, this is the volume. And then we also have Batman Under the Red Hood by Judd Winnick and Dog Monkey. This is just as great as the animated movie. And they jumble around some things. Some things happens in a different order than in the movie, but both still works. And the script is basically ripped right out of this book, and it's just great. And this takes place soon after Batman Hush, if I remember correctly. And then we have glad news, because this series, the Batman and Robin Eternal, volumes 1 and 2, are gonna get a omnibus treatment. So these volumes will not be here next time you see an updated collection from me. They will hopefully be here in the omnibus format. Speaking of, we start off with the Batman omnibus now with the Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale omnibus, collecting their first 3 works of Batman within them. And next up, carry on with more Batman, of course. Okay, so we're almost done here. We start off with the Batman Road to No Man's Land omnibus, followed by No Man's Land, of course, volumes 1 and 2. Volume 2 is still in a shrink wrap. Volume 1 would also be. I just opened it up just to have a look around, but I will reread these at some point. There is a plan, believe me. And then we have the Batman by Grant Morrison, volumes 1, 2, and 3. The material in volume 2, which is the Batman and Robin stuff, I probably reread the most out of everything on this shelf, if we do not count the Batman by Scott Snyder, volumes 1, with the Court of Owls series in it. And then, of course, before that, we have the Batman and Robin by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. And showed you the Scott Snyder ones. These are really good collections, really great stories. Then we have Batman Eternal omnibus, soon going to be joined by the Batman and Robin Eternal omnibus, even though that the series doesn't have anything to do with each other, even though the titles are similar. And then we have probably, actually, I think the strongest of the bunch, the Batman, The Rise and Fall of the Batman omnibus by James Tynion IV, because it's just, it has so many perfect stories within it. And sad to say, this copy, I will have to sell, because it has some pages that are misprinted, but I will buy a new edition of it. And that's just because otherwise, if it was any other than this book, I wouldn't care. But this one is so great, I wanted to have it in pristine condition. So yeah, that's the Rise and Fall of the Batman. And then last but not least, for this row, we have Batgirl by Gail Simone. So that is the New 52 series of Batgirl, that is. And then we move on to the last and final row of DC Omnibus. Is it just me, or is it getting darker in this corner for every row that I film? Anyways, I don't think that I can pull out any books now. On the first left we have Gotham Central, still in the shrink wrap because I just had to update from the first printing that I had because it was falling apart. And then we have The Flash by Jeff Johns, volumes 1, 2, and 3. That's the Wally West Flash and not the Barry Allen. Then we have, of course, Jeff Johns' magnum opus, once again, Green Lantern series, volumes 1, 2, and 3. So the whole thing collected there. And a equal such series, I would say, but when it comes to a team title, the Justice Society of America, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And then, wrapping up right there in the corner, the Teen Titans by Jeff Johns as well. So if it wasn't for the Gotham Central book there, this would be a total Jeff Johns shelf. And here, as you can see, we keep on with more books written by Jeff Johns. We start off with Hawkman Omnibus, Volume 1, even though that it never came out a Volume 2. And then we have the Infinite Crisis Omnibus. This is the second edition. I used to have the first printing, but then the binding of that one wasn't too great, so updated to this one. Then we have the 52 Omnibus by Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, Greg Rucka, Mark Waid, Keith Giffen. Great writers. And then we have the 10th anniversary of Final Crisis Omnibus with Darkseid Bear, and the Blackest Night Omnibus as well. And you might think I'm crazy to have the Blackest Night Omnibus while you still have the Volume 2 Jeff Johns Omnibus, but this collects so much more when it comes into events and tie-ins, and DC is my universe, and there's so many characters that I want to follow on how they are all affected by these events, and that is why I have all of these event books in the omnibus format instead of just reading them in their standard format or what else. So yeah, let's keep on and now go to the final and last shelf for this year's graphic novel collection update. Okay, so here we have it, the last shelf for this year's update. And starting off with more Jeff Johns book, we have Brightest Day Omnibus, the Aquaman by Jeff Johns, New 52, I should mention, as well as the Justice League New 52 Omnibus, volumes 1 and 2, some of the best series that you'll ever read if you ever do. And then we have Brian Azzarello's, Cliff Chang's Wonder Woman, it's the whole series. I was going to say volume 1. And then we have rebirth titles like Superman by Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, as well as Super Sons, which was the first rebirth title. One wouldn't guess that this would be the first one that actually got an omnibus, and it's the expanded edition. And then we have Grant Morrison's Animal Man, followed by, you can barely see it, but it's the He-Man Masters of the Universe Omnibus. It's a really great story actually, but works tremendously well as a comic book. And I think you can barely see it. Gotta tilt the camera here. Yeah, and then here, as you can see, our last books for this tour. The Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon Preacher volumes 1 and 2, and last but not least, Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan. So, that is basically it. That is the collection update for this year. I thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can check out the links down below for Instagram if you want to check out on how the collection grows and change and everything ever collected related in between the videos. And once again, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you all in another video. Thanks again. Bye bye.